Well, hello everyone. Philosopher Stoner here. Another video. I'm having myself a freezy because it's fucking hot. Oh yeah, man, that's good shit. Having problems uploading videos to YouTube. Seems when I record them on my phone and then try to upload gives me problems, but when I enter the YouTube app and I just directly record on YouTube, it seems to work okay. So that's how we're doing shit these days. Anyways, yes, so the topic of this video is I watched a video by Noam Chomsky, and he's an intellectual in the United States, far left winger, calls himself a libertarian socialist, which is basically anarchism, going back to the Russian anarchists that were allied with the communists before the communists turned into a dictatorship. Mikhail Bakunin, others, Emma Goldman. Those were some famous anarchists, and he's not like he doesn't advocate for violence. He's not an extreme radical or anything, but he's got some good books, Manufacturing Consent, about how the mainstream media, there's a narrow spectrum of opinion allowed. They allow vigorous debate within that spectrum, but anybody outside the spectrum is not discussed. So you have the illusion of choice, right? It's either Democrat or Republican, nothing else, no other alternatives. So I was watching a video that he made recently, and he's getting to be quite the old man. I don't even know how old he is, but yes, the weariness in his voice of trying to be the voice of reason, and just you can, see the furrows in his brow, the wrinkles, and all the sighing, and all the, oh man, these people are just too fucking stupid. Oh man, they don't want to listen to reason, and he's basically a hippie, right? He doesn't really believe in being authoritarian. He'd like to do the whole socialism thing, but on a voluntary basis. Not authoritarian, but a whole lifetime of basically advocating for left wing stuff, but like I said, in a voluntary way, and debating people and all this stuff. And yeah, people just don't want to listen, and people just don't want to hear it, especially in the United States. But yeah, he's been influential on me, much like the right-wing libertarians, like the Ayn Rand types and whatever, were influential. Good stuff about the United States, their imperialism, how they're, total hypocrisy. They're involved in all sorts of wars overseas. They claim freedom and democracy, and they help to, prop up dictatorships and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, so yeah, he made a video basically saying the weariness in his voice that the two threats of climate change and the threat of nuclear war, if we don't solve either of these problems, yeah, we're basically fucked. We're doomed. And he's leaning more towards a kind of pessimism. He's basically, yeah, a hippie, right? So the anti-war hippies. But what we've seen on the left is that, yes, I'm an anti-war hippie. Yes, I agree with that. I tend to be a left wing on a lot of things. But yes, there's definitely a pushback that I've watched the left devolved into the cancel culture, into these super hypersensitive crybabies that can't take a joke. Everything is offensive, completely irrationally obsessed about what they're doing with their private parts, and that's the main focus of everything. And even Chomsky talks about it, right? The ultimate expression of identity politics is basically white nationalism. So the modern left is much like the critique of Theodore Kaczynski, who was the Unabomber. He wrote a thing called The Ship of Fools. It's like a play of his critique of the modern left. Yes, that's basically it. Although, and again, not related to Chomsky, but Chomsky, even criticizing what has become the left, how it's completely derailed. And he talks about this, like the right wings people in the States, like the Alex Jones types, the right wing populism. There's threads that people are responding to in that, the populist element. It's like how a certain contingent of the Bernie Sanders supporters have gone and voted for Trump because the rhetoric of Trump is, promising, American, buy American, support American workers, put tariffs on overseas countries, try to protect American business and American workers and all that kind of stuff. That there's an element of sort of a leftism in Trump that people can see. But it's deceptive because what it feeds into is the libertarians, especially the right-wing libertarians, is it's the what he calls the mood of anti-politics. So oftentimes the right-wing libertarians, they exclusively just talk about criticizing the government. And it's true, the government's up to a lot of no good stuff, but the government has this defect that it's potentially influenceable by the people, right? We can vote people in and out. Although Chomsky doesn't really talk about or address this idea of the deep state, where there seems to be almost like this shadow government, this permanent government of people that are appointed. They're in the government for a lifetime and they never leave. And this agenda moves forward that it doesn't matter who you vote for, nothing really seems to change, right? And Chomsky mentions it that people, rightfully so, voted for hope and change with Barack Obama, and they didn't get any. What they got was total hypocrisy, a war in Libya, all sorts of nonsense overseas, more of the same thing, basically. But yes, it's the mood of anti-politics. So the right-wing libertarians, the right-wing populists, they focus on exclusively just criticizing the government. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying don't criticize the government. They're up to a lot of no good stuff. But what he mentions is that, Chomsky mentions, is that we've basically surrendered completely to all of these private tyrannies, these private corporations where the orders come from up above. They're handed down, and there's no way to like my conversation, one of my recent videos, that big tech is evil on Facebook, right, where there's no number to call, there's no committee, there's no way to debate, there's no way to vote, there's no way to have an influence. The modern day trade unions and other organizations that gave people at least an element of democracy, it gave people a voice, have all been decimated and demolished. So there's really no one to turn to. There's nowhere to go except for right-wing populism. But even these right-wing populists are, yes, dismantling all sorts of institutions that provide any shred of accountability, any shred of democracy, any shred of you have a voice and what you say matters. And that the anarchist principle is always preoccupied really with this idea that you should have a say in things that directly affect you, to the degree that they affect you, and also to the degree that you contribute, right? So it's not necessarily that a cleaner should have as much voice as a CEO, but if the decision affects them, and if they have to do the work and they have to participate, they should have a voice in proportion to their participation, right? And that, yes, all of these institutions only function if we participate. And so what the right-wingers, the right-wing populists, the right-wing libertarians, the Ayn Rand types, they encourage people to not vote. They encourage people to not participate. They encourage people to not be activists. And slowly over time, all of these institutions are being eroded that, while they're not perfect, the government, it's highly flawed, but yeah, you can at least vote. You at least have some kind of a say, and all of that's just being demolished. And yes, we've just surrendered to Coca-Cola and Monsanto, and we've acquiesced to Facebook and all of these big companies and all of these little Hitlers. That profit is everything, private profit. They're all offshore and exempt. There's threads that the right-wing populists are picking up on where there seems to be these commonalities and overlap. But yes, it's just all such a dysfunctional conversation. So yes, definitely I tend to gravitate more to these extreme ideologies in terms of looking at politics. And there's a good reason why they exist and why people are getting so uptight and out of sight. If Trump wins, there's going to be bloodshed. If Trump loses, there's going to be bloodshed. There's probably going to be a civil war. It's all going to shit. And yeah, there are no more institutions. There aren't any good unions. Even the unions that I've been a part of. I used to be a cleaner at this industrial site in the city at a steel plant. All of these people that just didn't take any responsibility. People that bitched and complained about the union, but then they never showed up to meetings. They didn't vote. They didn't do anything. Yes, Chomsky's right. The mood of anti-politics seems to have taken over. And then, yes, if you're not some whack job, if you're not screaming at the top of your lungs about what you're doing with your private parts, or if you're not some nut on the left or the right, if you're not a fucking nut job, if you're not an evangelical Christian or whatever, you don't have a fucking voice. And the institutions just don't seem to exist anymore. And it just seems to be just all of this nonsense that people are just, yes, it's like the whole thing is we're just going fucking insane. And then the way I see it, like especially these cities, I think it's cities that are responsible. There's studies of rats. When they put too many rats in the maze, the rats start acting weird. That it's all just too big. There are so many cities in our world, like Shanghai has like 23 million people. Tokyo has like 30 million people. Just these metropolises, these megapolises, these huge cities, New York, Los Angeles. It's all just, we come from primitive hunter-gatherers, so yeah, there's no way to organize. It's like, yeah, we criticize China for being authoritarian, which they most certainly are. I lived there for 2 years, I know, but yeah, how would you run it? How would you control it? And it's nice to have the Chomsky, the libertarian ideas, the hippie ideals of, not having any rulers or bosses, everything being democratic and everybody sort of cooperating and everything. But yeah, it just seems to be that we're all just a bunch of assholes, everybody, no one wants to have accountability. No, everybody hides behind a cartoon character. Nobody wants to show their face. No one wants to talk about anything. No one cares for the nerds. No one cares for the voice of reason. And yes, everything's just falling apart. And so I guess that the end point to take away from this is that, well, because this is the case, unless we all work together and find a solution, yes, we really are fucked. The tensions are rising that, yes, nuclear war is very possible. And at that point, yes, it's probably all over. So yes, us antinatalists, we're probably going to get our wish. But it's unfortunate it won't happen in any sort of graceful or dignified way. It'll all be, it'll be the Mad Max world. It's really going to suck if that happens. And also climate change. And it doesn't seem to be that we're doing anything to really solve it. And I think even at this point, even say if we all stop driving our cars and stopped polluting and stopped eating meat and doing a lot of things that are really, nasty and not productive, it wouldn't change anything anyway. I really think it is all just heading to a cliff. And even the noble idealist like Chomsky, you can just hear the weariness in his voice where he's just like, yeah, you can hear it in his voice where he's just like, yeah, my God, these people are just such fucking stupid assholes that, he's almost throwing in the towel. Like this video that he made is like one of his last ditch efforts, but he's been in the fight for a long time. He's an old fucking man. Like he's tired of shit. And it's interesting. He had a conversation with William F. Buckley. I may have talked about him before in some of my other videos going way, way back. Good old Bill Buckley, who was like this right-wing conservative. And there's an interesting video that you can YouTube search it, where it's William F. Buckley on death. And it's where William F. Buckley says, like, if he's asked if you could take a pill to wind back the clock and go back 20 years or become young again, he's like, no, I wouldn't take it. And then he's like, I'm tired of life. And he's just like, it's the Christian, it's the resignation that, yeah, this is all just this is just planet of the stupid fucktard asshole. And, yeah, why would you want to do it over again? And why would you want to play? And then he mentions, and this, like I said, this guy was a conservative. This guy was a right winger, a Republican. And, he supported the Vietnam War, and he supported all sorts of nasty stuff. And then his realization at the end was that, yes, he was tired of it. And you can even see, and then he had this debate with Noam Chomsky that you can also YouTube it. It's on YouTube. William F. Buckley and Noam Chomsky, where they have a debate about Vietnam. It's a very good debate. Chomsky makes a lot of really good points about United States imperialism, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, even Chomsky now, as an old man, is just reaching much. You can hear it in his voice. He doesn't explicitly say it, but yeah, he's getting pretty fucking tired. Like, yep, this is just Planet of the Stupid Asshole. Life really, it doesn't go anywhere, and it's just all a big fucking mess, and there's just too many people, and there's too many people, and there's an overconsumption of resources, and there's this major distribution problem where, yeah, all of these private tyrannies, all of this pursuit of endless, ruthless pursuit of private profit, no democracy, no nothing, no fair trial, no say, no nothing. Just all these little Hitlers giving orders where, yeah, it's just all a big fucking mess. And yeah, I don't really see that there's too many ways to fight back that don't involve, yeah, some kind of bloodshed, some kind of civil war or revolt or some kind of other nastiness. But yes, if that happens, most likely, yep, nuclear war, and yep, we're fucked. And you can hear it in his voice. He's saying, yep, we're fucked. We're done. We're cooked. And yeah, that's quite depressing. It's quite depressing because the human race, it seems there is some potential that we could be doing something good here, but yeah, we're just making a big fucking mess. And this is what led me to antinatalism, having these kind of thoughts and considering all sorts of different viewpoints and different political thinkers and different political philosophies that, yeah, the human race just doesn't want to grow up. And the people that have grown up a little bit, yeah, they're the noble idealists, and they're frustrated because nobody cares and nobody wants to listen. And people suck, and I suck, and you suck, and we all fucking suck. This shit sucks. Anyways, yeah, that's basically it. Yep, it's quite the negative video here. Oh shit, my freezie's melting. Oh fuck, it's practically liquid. Oh man, that's the shit. Philosopher Stoner out.